America is the richest and most powerful country in modern history, but its rise wasn't inevitable. In fact, it was highly unlikely. For most of history, North America was ignored, misunderstood, and barely explored. And what eventually became the United States started as a distant, confusing land at the edge of the known world. So how did this forgotten continent become a global superpower? Let's go back to the beginning, the empty continent that wasn't empty. Before Europeans arrived, North America was home to vast civilizations, cultures, and nations. But in Europe, the map looked very different. A few explorers believed there was land far to the west. The Vikings even claimed they reached strange islands, but nobody realized they had actually touched a whole continent. Then came Christopher Columbus. He believed he could reach Asia by sailing west. Instead, he landed in the Caribbean islands, but Columbus didn't realize his mistake. He thought he had reached India, which is why he called the native people Indians. He returned to Europe with a new story. There's gold and new lands, and that changed everything. Spain, Portugal, and the race for the new world. At the time, Portugal had already discovered a sea route around Africa to Asia, building a profitable trade empire. To avoid conflict, Spain and Portugal divided the world between them with a simple line on a map. Spain got most of the Americas. Portugal focused on Africa and Asia. Spain rushed into the new world, searching for gold, silver, and empire. They found it in the south and central regions. But North America? It didn't seem valuable at the time. So, for a long time, Spain mostly ignored it. The English arrive, slowly. While Spain was building wealth in the south, England was slowly exploring the north. They tried their first colony in the late 1500s, but it mysteriously vanished. Then came Jamestown in 1607, and this time it survived. A few years later, the Pilgrims arrived in Plymouth, seeking religious freedom and a strict way of life. More settlers followed. Gradually, the East Coast filled with British colonies. Meanwhile, the French claimed huge parts of central North America, building trading networks deep into the continent. And for a while, everything remained balanced, but beneath the surface, competition was growing, and every empire knew that sooner or later, control of North America would come down to war, the French and Indian War. By the mid-1700s, Britain and France were competing for control of North America. Both sides formed alliances with different Native American tribes. The conflict became known as the French and Indian War. Britain had more people, more resources, and stronger support. And eventually, Britain won. France lost most of its North American territory. Britain suddenly controlled a massive portion of the continent. But there was a problem. War is expensive, and Britain needed money, taxes, tension, and revolution. To recover war costs, Britain started taxing its American colonies heavily. The problem? The colonies had no political representation in Britain, so they pushed back. No taxation without representation. Tensions grew quickly, and what began as protests turned into revolution. On July 4, 1776, the colonies declared independence. The United States of America was born, on paper. But the war had just begun. U.S., a new nation in chaos after winning independence, the United States still faced major instability. The 13 states acted like separate countries, and the central government was very weak. To fix this, the Founding Fathers created a new constitution, forming a stronger federal system. In 1789, George Washington became the first president, but the country remained small along the East Coast, while vast lands were still controlled by European powers. Most Americans couldn't yet imagine how large their nation would eventually become. Napoleon and the Louisiana Surprise. Meanwhile, Napoleon rose in France and aimed to rebuild a global empire, briefly taking control of the massive Louisiana territory. This alarmed the United States because the Mississippi River was vital for trade. The U.S. initially wanted only New Orleans, but Napoleon made a shocking offer. He sold the entire Louisiana territory for $15 million. In a single deal, America doubled in size overnight, expansion and manifest destiny. With vast new lands available, America expanded rapidly westward. Settlers moved across the continent in search of land and opportunity, while the idea of manifest destiny spread, the belief that the nation was destined to stretch from coast to coast. Native lands were increasingly displaced as expansion accelerated. In 1819, Florida was purchased from Spain, and soon after, Mexico's independence created a new southern neighbor. American settlers flooded into Texas, which eventually broke away from Mexico and joined the United States, leading to another war. By the end of it, the U.S. gained even more Western territory. The Oregon Agreement with Britain later defined the northern borders. By the mid-1800s, the United States stretched from the Atlantic to the Pacific. Gold, conflict, and division. Then came the California Gold Rush, bringing millions west in search of fortune, but also increasing tensions inside the country. The biggest issue was slavery. The North opposed it, while the South depended on it. In 1860, Abraham Lincoln was elected, and Southern states seceded to form their own nation, triggering the Civil War. After years of brutal conflict, the North won, and slavery was abolished. The United States remained united, but the war reshaped the nation politically, socially, and economically, laying the foundation for a modern superpower. Alaska, Hawaii, and global power. The U.S. bought Alaska from Russia for a very low price, once called useless ice, but later proven valuable. Soon after, attention turned to Hawaii, a strategic Pacific island chain that was eventually annexed. With these moves, America moved beyond its mainland and began rising as a global power. The Spanish-American War in 1898. Tensions with Spain led to war after the U.S. intervened in Cuba's independence struggle. The explosion of the USS Maine triggered open conflict. Spain was quickly defeated, and the U.S. gained Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines. With Spain's empire collapsing, America officially emerged as an imperial power. Panama Canal and world influence under President Theodore Roosevelt. The U.S. supported Panama's independence and built the Panama Canal, one of history's greatest engineering feats, cutting travel time between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. At the same time, America expanded its naval power rapidly. By the early 1900s, the United States was no longer just rising. It had become a global power, and the world order was beginning to change. From an unexplored coastline to a global superpower, America's rise was not planned. It was shaped by exploration, war, ambition, shifting alliances, and historical accidents that changed everything. And this is only the beginning of its story. If you want more videos like this, make sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for the next history breakdown.